Okay, well, I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough of putting together the rent roll template for the Landlord Compensation Fund program. And you can either get this through the online application portal, or if you are on our program website, the Landlord Compensation Fund, you can find it under the application portal and required forms. You see this rent roll template, and you can just download it directly from here. Get that to share on the screen. Great, so you'll see here that there are two different tabs. One is the instruction tab and one is the rent roll data tab. And I'll just hide this stuff so we don't see it so much. And so the rent roll data tab is just a blank sheet with some headers. It's really important that we don't edit this, the order or the columns or the labels. Otherwise it might not read it correctly when it's importing into the system. At the top here are some instructions for this. Again, not revising the sheet. You want to have it so that each row of the spreadsheet is reflecting one month for one unit. The rent roll data must contain all units going back to April 2020 through the current period. And you even want to report vacant units or former tenants, but we are only requesting contact information being household name, email, and phone are for only, you're only needing to provide them for current tenants to be able to do this application. Let's see, and so the way that we're recommending that you handle this for, because there is a head of household name and a head of household last name and all of this, is that if you're a current tenant who is current on their rent, instead of putting their name in there, you just identify them as current and their tenant in their unit, or former tenant in their unit. Again, wanting to put their email address and phone number if you have that to report for current tenants that owe back rent. So I just wanted to show, kind of walk through how this looks. There is this example in the instruction sheet. But again, so we have the rent of the due date. And so this is, again, you want to be able to put in here from April 1st through the current month of application. Paste that in. So April, and I'm missing a couple here. The next January and February. The first application round will go through February rent. The second application round would go through March rent. So we have each of the month listed, and then I'm just going to go through, and you might have this in another system or be able to export it, or you're just creating it for this purpose. So here, what was the rent that I was charging for these? And in this case, I'm going to say I was charging $600 in rent. And then I want to indicate how much rent they actually, the tenant paid. And enter that. So this tenant did not pay their full rent. You can then either do that calculation in Excel and or just enter it in. So you can see this tenant in April, May through October was late on their rent. They're now paying the full month, but have not paid all of their back. Then just want to populate the address for this property. And then before I get into the tenant data, so this might be, so here I'm going to do, I have a 3-unit complex in Oregon City. And now, so in this apartment 1, who's paid this amount of rent, I'm just going to put in their information. So copy and paste from other places, but you want to get it into this format and not change the column header. So here I have email, but just for an example, this should be their email address if you have it. If you don't, you can leave it blank. But so this is Frank Adams, and giving their information and including language if you happen to have it. Okay, so that's our first tenant. And so now I want to add another tenant that, and I'll add one that is current on rent, or maybe we'll do. So here in this case, let's say I had a former tenant in this unit, and um, they were, so I would put this information in for my former tenant. So this tenant, here's their rent, were delinquent, but they moved out. This rent can't be included in this program because they're a former tenant and they can't sign the declaration for financial hardship to get landlord protections, but you do want to include this debt in your data that you're providing to through this application, because in terms of scoring for projects, we are including part of the scoring is what percentage of your total rent has been paid since, going back to April 2020. And so if you that's why we're requesting everybody to complete this information going back in time, so that we can accurately score and prioritize projects for funding. So this is a former tenant, and is this? So they had moved in. Some of these moving dates are weird. So this person had moved in back in 2018. I think that date should carry. So I just list it former 2 for apartment 2. But then a new tenant did move in. The new tenant is not late on their rent. So here, this tenant owes no money, so I don't need to provide their contact information, and I just list them as current in apartment 2. Again, I don't need to put in their contact information. And then I'll add one last tenant in here. So here's the same address, apartment 3, and here, former tenant again. I should say former in apartment 3, just so we have that clear. And then the current tenant is Jennifer Roger. She does owe rent, so I'm including her name and contact information. And that is really it. And so you would want to complete this. Each spreadsheet is one project. So when you're entering a project into the system, you want to do one spreadsheet for each project. And so it will upload directly into that project that you've entered into the system. And that's it. And then you just click save, and it will save it. And then once you go back into the application portal, you'll be able to upload that to your application.